The galaxy spoke her name with a mixture of reverence and fear. Commander Soraya of the Kalari Dominion was more than a soldier. She was the embodiment of her people's philosophy. To the Kalari, war was not a burden, but a way of life. The highest calling of their kind. Their society revolved around strength, discipline, and conquest. A warrior's worth was measured not by what they built, but by what they destroyed and how many victories they claimed in the name of the Dominion. Soraya had risen higher than most of her kind could dream. She was tall, her scaled skin carrying the sheen of battle scars, her golden eyes sharp enough to unnerve even her fellow commanders. From the moment she first stepped into training as a hatchling, she had vowed never to allow softness into her heart. To feel love, to desire companionship, these things were distractions, corrosions of willpower. The Kailari called it the warrior's oath, to live as steel, to die as steel. Soraya had sworn it before her first campaign, and she had honored it with every drop of blood spilled on the battlefield. When the war with the Terran Republic erupted, Soraya was among the first called to the front. The Kalari believed humans would fall quickly. After all, Terrans were smaller, softer, and came from a planet considered mild by galactic standards. A Deathworld species like the Kalari should have crushed them easily, yet as the conflict dragged on, Soraya discovered that humans were nothing like the Kailari's predictions. Humans fought with an intensity that rivaled her own people's ferocity, but there was something else woven into their strategies, something Soraya could not name at first. They fought not just to win, but to protect. Soldiers risked themselves for civilians. Medics ran into crossfire to save the fallen, and entire units fought with desperation not for glory, but for the lives behind them. The Kailari fought for conquest. The humans fought for each other. And it unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. It was during one of the Kailari's many raids that Soraya's path crossed with the man who would shake her oath to its core. His name was Elias Drake, a captain in the Terran Republic fleet. He had been captured after a daring but failed attempt to sabotage a Kalari supply line. Brought before her in chains, Elias did not bow his head as most prisoners did. He did not beg for mercy, nor did he spit insults. Instead, he held her gaze with steady, unflinching eyes. "You don't have to be our enemy," he said. The words were simple, not the calculated speech of a diplomat, nor the desperate plea of a doomed man. They carried conviction. Soraya studied him carefully, waiting for trickery. Yet the human did not waver. He spoke as though he truly believed it, that even here in the heart of Kailari war camps, surrounded by enemies, he could reach her. For the first time in her life, Soraya felt something strike at the walls she had so carefully built. It was not fear. Fear she understood. It was not anger. That was easy to master. It was something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Why would this fragile creature dare to stand against her, unarmed, chained, and defeated? Why did his words linger in her mind even after the guards dragged him away? She should have dismissed him, should have regarded his statement as weakness. And yet, when she returned to her quarters that night, his voice echoed in her mind. "You don't have to be our enemy." She clenched her fists until her claws bit into her palms, trying to silence the thought. It was nothing. He was nothing. She was a commander of the Dominion. She was sworn to steel, to war, to victory. And yet, despite every oath she had made, Soraya could not shake the memory of the human's calm defiance. The golden walls of her oath had held for decades, but with one sentence, Elias Drake had placed the first crack within them. Elias Drake was no ordinary prisoner. From the moment he was placed in the Kalari stronghold, bound in heavy chains, Soraya sensed there was something different about him. Most captives broke quickly, either screaming in rage, spitting curses, or collapsing into silence. But Elias did neither. He remained calm, collected, his eyes bright with a stubborn light that Soraya found both irritating and intriguing. At first, she visited him out of duty. It was common practice for commanders to interrogate high-ranking enemies themselves, to judge the value of a prisoner. Elias was a captain. He had knowledge of Terran fleet movements, of strategies, of supply lines. Yet whenever she entered the dimly lit cell, she found herself speaking less like a commander and more like something else. He did not answer her questions in the way she expected. Instead of spitting propaganda or offering information, he asked his own. "Why do your people fight without end?" he asked one evening, his voice steady despite the chains weighing down his arms. Soraya narrowed her eyes. "Because war is who we are. Without it, we are nothing." But he only tilted his head slightly, as if examining her, as though her words were not final. "Do you truly believe that? Or is it what you've been told since the day you were born?" The question cut deeper than she wanted to admit. No one among the Kailari would ever dare ask such a thing. To doubt the purpose of war was to invite dishonor. Yet this human, fragile and bound, asked it freely. Their conversations grew longer with each visit. He spoke of Earth, not as a military power, but as a living world filled with oceans, forests, and cultures that valued more than conquest. He told her of music, of art, of people who built instead of destroyed. Soraya listened in silence, pretending indifference, but she found herself returning again and again. She, in turn, told him of the Kailari Oath, how each warrior swore to purge weakness from themselves, how love was forbidden, because it clouded judgment, how strength was measured only in victories, never in bonds. Elias never mocked her creed, he simply listened. And when she finished, he spoke with the same maddening conviction as before. "Maybe strength isn't just about how many enemies you defeat," he said softly. "Maybe it's about how many people you can protect." Soraya bristled. "Protection is weakness. It makes you hesitate." But Elias only smiled, and the calm certainty in his expression unsettled her more than any enemy blade. One night, as the faint glow of Kailari moons seeped into the cell, she asked him a question she hadn't meant to voice. "Why do you not fear death?" The human leaned back against the wall, chains clinking. "Because death comes for us all. If I fall, then I fall knowing I stood for something worth more than myself. That's what makes life meaningful." Soraya stared at him, trying to understand. To Kailari warriors, meaning was found in conquest, in trophies, in scars. Yet Elias spoke of meaning in sacrifice, in ideals, concepts the Dominion dismissed as weakness. She should have dismissed him, should have ordered his execution, or at the very least distanced herself. But instead, she found herself thinking of him long after she left. His voice lingered in her mind, steady and unshaken, unlike the roars of her fellow warriors. Sometimes she even dreamed of his words. "You don't have to be our enemy." One evening, as she lingered outside his cell, she caught herself staring at him longer than she should have. He had fallen asleep, his head resting against the cold wall. His features were soft compared to the harsh lines of her kind. And yet there was resilience in him, a strength she could not name. Soraya clenched her fists, furious at herself. These were dangerous thoughts. She was a commander of the Kailari Dominion, a living embodiment of war. To even consider the words of a human prisoner was a betrayal of everything she had sworn. And yet, when she turned away, her heart thundered in her chest in a way she had never felt before. For the first time, Commander Soraya feared not the battlefield, not her enemies, but the unsettling truth she carried with her. The war dragged on, and with each passing month, Soraya's reputation among the Kailari only grew. She led fleets to victory, crushed Terran outposts, and added scar upon scar to her body, marks of honor in her people's eyes. Yet when the Yi battles ended and the silence of her quarters returned, her thoughts betrayed her. They returned not to the triumphs of war, nor the chants of her warriors, but to the human prisoner held in the depths of the stronghold, Elias Drake. It was infuriating. She had sworn the warrior's oath, had built walls around her heart like iron fortresses. But cracks were forming, small, relentless fractures. Each conversation with him widened them. His questions lingered like whispers in the dark. His defiance, calm, quiet, unshakable, was a thorn she could not pull free. Soraya told herself it was nothing, a passing distraction. Yet when a high-ranking Kailari official declared that Elias should be executed, publicly, as a warning to the Terran Republic, her reaction was immediate and violent. "No," she said, her voice ringing across the council chamber. The others froze. A commander of her stature did not defy such orders lightly. But Soraya stepped forward, her golden eyes blazing, her presence enough to silence even the boldest of generals. "He is mine," she declared. "His life belongs to me. He holds knowledge the Terrans would die to protect. To kill him now would be wasteful." It was a lie, and she knew it. Elias had offered no military secrets, nor had she pressed him for any in weeks. But her words carried weight. The council, reluctant to challenge her authority after so many victories, relented. The execution was stayed. Later, in the dim quiet of his cell, Elias looked up as she entered. His chains rattled faintly as he stood, his eyes meeting hers with that same steady light. "You saved me," he said simply. "I preserved a resource," she replied quickly, too quickly. A faint smile touched his lips. "No, you broke your oath." Her chest tightened, as if his words were a blade piercing through scales and armor. She turned sharply, her claws digging into her palms. "You know nothing of my oath." "Maybe not," Elias said, his voice softer now. "But I know what I see. Every time you step through that door, you're not the commander they think. You are. You're someone who questions, who feels. You're someone who cares." The word, cares, struck harder than any weapon. Care was weakness. Care was forbidden. And yet, standing there, Soraya could not deny the truth. She had cared. Enough to stand against her own counsel. Enough to lie to protect him. For the first time in her life, Soraya feared not her enemies, not failure, not death, but herself. The oath she had built her entire life upon was eroding, and she could not stop it. Days turned into weeks, and the tension inside her only grew. In battle, she was still ruthless, still victorious, but her mind drifted, traitorous, to the human who had survived because of her. She replayed their conversations in her head, the way his words lingered long after the clash of steel had faded. Her. Warriors began to notice the change. She was more cautious, less reckless with her troops. She issued orders that prioritized survival over glory. Whispers spread. Was Commander Soraya growing soft? Had the endless war dulled her edge? She ignored them outwardly, but inside, the doubts gnawed at her. One night, after a particularly brutal skirmish, she found herself standing outside Elias's cell once more. He looked at her as if he already knew why she was there. "You can't fight it forever," he said quietly. She bristled. "Fight what?" "The truth, that you're more than what they made you, that you're not just a blade to be swung." His words cut deeper than any Kailari blade. She wanted to strike him, to silence him, to prove him wrong. But instead, she turned and walked away, her footsteps heavy, her chest burning with emotions she could no longer deny. the war reached its climax. After years of bloody stalemates, the Kailari Dominion prepared for a decisive strike. Intelligence had uncovered a vulnerable Terran colony, a sprawling settlement on the edge of their territory, home to hundreds of thousands. Destroying it would cripple Terran morale and secure Kailari dominance. The Dominion's High Council appointed Soraya to lead the assault, their most trusted and proven commander. To refuse was unthinkable. Victory meant eternal honor. Her name, etched into Kailari history as the warrior who brought humanity to its knees. Refusal meant disgrace, perhaps even execution. Yet Soraya felt no triumph when she received the order. Instead, her chest tightened, her thoughts dragging unwillingly to Elias. She could already imagine his expression if he knew, calm, sorrowful, and filled with that maddening belief in her. That night, she went to him. The cell was quiet, lit by the pale glow of the moons through a narrow slit in the stone. Elias rose when she entered, his chains clinking softly. "You're troubled," he said, reading her as easily as ever. Soraya hesitated before speaking. "The Council has given me command of a final strike, a Terran colony. If I succeed, your people will suffer a blow they cannot recover from." He was silent for a long moment, then softly, "And if you refuse?" She bared her teeth in frustration. "Then I am a traitor. They will strip me of command, perhaps my life. Everything I have fought for, everything I am, will be gone." Elias studied her, his gaze steady. "Then what do you want, Soraya?" The B. Question cut like a blade. No one had ever asked her that. Not her fellow commanders, not her soldiers, not even herself. She had always known what was expected. To fight, to win, to serve. Want had no place in the life of a Kailari warrior. And yet, Elias asked it as though it mattered more than victory itself. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I do not know." Elias stepped closer, as far as his chains allowed. "You already know. You're just afraid to admit it." Her golden eyes flashed. "Afraid? I fear nothing." "Then prove it," he said softly. "Choose for yourself, not for them, not for your oath, for you." The silence stretched between them. For the first time in her life, Soraya felt the weight of tears sting her eyes. She turned away quickly, furious at her own weakness. Kailari warriors did not cry, they did not break. And yet, here she was, her oath crumbling under the weight of one human's words. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. "If I betray them, I lose everything." Elias's reply was gentle, but firm. "If you burn that colony, you lose yourself." His words struck with brutal clarity. She had thought herself invincible, armored by duty and oath. But Elias had shown her the truth. Her walls were already broken, her heart no longer untouched by weakness. No, by something else. Something her people had denied for generations. Love. It terrified her more than any enemy blade. That night, she returned to her quarters, but found no rest. The image of Elias haunted her, the conviction in his eyes, the quiet strength in his voice. She replayed their conversations, his maddening questions, his unshakable belief in something greater than survival. By dawn, her decision was made. She would not lead the slaughter of innocents. She would not burn the colony. She would not bury the part of herself that Elias had awakened. But to do so meant severing herself from everything she had ever known. Her people would call her traitor. Her name would be cursed, not honored. The dominion she had devoted her life to would turn against her. Still, as she looked out at the rising suns, her heart felt lighter than it ever had before. For once, her choice was her own. And deep down, she knew she would rather walk into exile with Elias at her side than march into eternity with blood on her hands. The dawn of battle arrived. Kailari warships darkened the sky, vast silhouettes of steel and fire drifting above the horizon. In the command hall, Soraya stood at the center, armored in black and gold, her voice ready to deliver orders that would decide the fate of thousands. Her warriors awaited her command with restless eagerness. They craved the bloodshed to come, the glory promised by conquest. Yet Soraya felt none of their hunger. The colony they were about to strike was not a fortress, not a battlefield. It was home to families, to children, to people who had never lifted a weapon, her claws curled into fists. She could hear Elias's words echoing in her mind. If you burn that colony, you lose yourself. She stepped forward, activating the comms that connected her to the entire fleet. Her voice rang out, strong and unwavering, but her words were unlike any she had ever spoken before. Warriors of the Dominion, she began. We were taught that strength is found only in conquest, that to live is to fight, and to die in battle is the highest honor. I believed this once. I swore the oath of steel, to never feel, to never falter. Murmurs rippled across the chamber. No commander spoke of weakness. No warrior admitted doubt. Yet Soraya's gaze burned with conviction. I was wrong. The words fell like thunder. Gasps echoed from the officers around her. There is more to life than war, she continued. More to strength than fear. We are not blades to be swung until we shatter. We are more. And today, I will not lead you to slaughter innocents. I will not stain my name with the blood of those who cannot fight back. I choose a different path. Chaos erupted. Some cried out in outrage, others in disbelief. Treason! One officer spat. You disgrace the Dominion! But Soraya's voice cut through the noise like a blade. If honor means murdering the helpless, then honor is nothing. If victory requires burning children, then victory is hollow. I will not command this fleet to do it. And with that, she shut down the assault codes, locking out her subordinates. Panic spread. Some commanders tried to override her authority. Others shouted for her arrest. Yet the hesitation in the ranks was palpable. Her reputation carried weight, and in that moment, doubt wormed its way into the hearts of Kailari warriors who had never before questioned their creed. The hesitation proved costly, for just as she had planned, the Terran fleet arrived, forewarned by her secret transmissions. Human ships burst from hyperspace, their formation precise and disciplined. The Kailari found themselves caught between divided loyalty and a prepared enemy. The decisive strike collapsed into chaos. Amid the uproar, Soraya moved swiftly. She descended into the prison hold, her armor clattering against the steel floors. When she reached Elias's cell, his head lifted, his expression calm, as if he had known she would come. You've made your choice, he said softly. Without a word, she tore the locks from his chains. For the first time, his hands were free, and when he took hers in his, she did not feel weak. She felt stronger than she ever had before. Together they fled through the corridors as alarms blared and Kailari warriors scrambled in confusion. Some tried to stop her, once comrades, now enemies, but none could match her resolve. With Elias at her side, every strike of her blade, every motion of her body felt purposeful, alive. At last, they reached the hangar where a stolen shuttle awaited. As the doors sealed and the ship roared into the void, Soraya looked back at the fleet that had once been her life. She felt no regret, only freedom. The Kailari Dominion would brand her a traitor, a deserter. Her name would be cursed where once it was praised. She had given up her command, her glory, her people. But when she turned and met Elias's gaze, she knew what she had gained: love.